The architecture of government needs to change to reflect the dire urgency of this issue. I want to make sure that any changes that this or any future government make is not just moving the deck chairs on the Titanic, that it is actually part of a coherent strategy that goes through every single department of government, every agency, and there is that urgency reflected in it. I want to commend the opposition for what is, I think, a perfectly reasonable motion. I think I would have improved on it. I think it could have been a little bit more congratulatory, but I think that in essential it is quite a mature bit of opposition. I want to just reflect a second on what this key point about creating a climate and environment emergency is really saying. As far as I'm concerned, of course we have an emergency. I 7 years ago attended the Pacific Islands Forum representing Her Majesty's Government, and there I met the leaders of island states who are buying leaseholds on other islands because theirs are practically uninhabitable. Their land where they've grown the food on which they depend is salinated because of rising seawater. And there are a whole host of other reasons why they certainly look you in the face and say, we have now a climate emergency. The IPCC has given us 12 years. That in climate science, that's a heartbeat. And we have to get this right. The ice shelves are melting 10 times the predicted rate last year. 39 million acres of tropical and rainforest were lost. And it is predicted that 1/3 of the species we have on this planet now will be lost by 2050 unless we do something. The crucial questions are, is the UK doing its bit? And I think it's sterilised the debate if people on that side of the House just attack us. I'm looking forward to some generous comments from the Honourable Lady Member for Brighton, no doubt, in the balanced nature of debate. Well, I'm sure applaud the government for what it has done to be a world leader. But in the end, let's talk about more important things about where we're going in the future. And I want to reflect on the very good speech by my right honourable friend, the member for Dorset West, and the also really inspirational words from the right honourable gentleman, the member for Doncaster North. Can Parliament reflect the nation's concerns? Can it raise its game to talk about this in a way that just doesn't make people out there turn a tin ear to our deliberations? Can it do that? It can, of course, by welcoming the fact that this is there is a fair degree of cross-party consensus on this, and I entirely recognise the point made by the right honourable gentleman that there will be a socialist tinge to this, there will be a free market tinge to it over here, but essentially we all want the same outcome, and we all accept the science. Unfortunately, that's not the case in the United States. It is an entirely polarising issue there, and for goodness sake, let's be glad that it's not that way here. But I think we've got to be honest with our constituents as well. When young people come to my door and say we need to be at net zero by 2025, I mean, wouldn't we all like that? But let's just explain to them, let's have the data about what that would actually require. Tomorrow, I'm hoping we will have a very clear steer from the Climate Change Committee about what is going to be required to get there by 2050 and 2045 in the largest amount. But I do agree with the right honourable gentleman for Doncaster North when I say, for goodness sake, let's be positive with our constituents. It's one thing to scare the pants off them, and there's a perfectly legitimate reason for doing that. But let's also be positive and explain to them that mankind has an extraordinary ability to overcome the most appalling problems, and we have the ability to do that now. And the power of market forces, which is why it's slightly different from the leader of the opposition, that properly regulated, properly incentivised market forces can achieve enormous amounts, as my right honourable friend said, particularly in the area, for example, of electric vehicles. So, whilst most people are supportive about what we're doing, they're also taking their children to school. They're also trying to keep their mortgage paid. They're trying to keep the roof over their head. They want to know that we're on it, that we have a real sense of purpose, and that across this political class represented in this chamber, we're going to get this sorted.